All right. Shalom, shalom, Israel. Wanted to give all praises, glory, and honor be to the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We do so in the name of his only begotten Son, right? Who serves as an instrument of salvation for the nation. That man to be known is who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. But post Sabbath lesson, man. Salaki, I know it's late. You know, some people out, enjoying their fellowship after the Sabbath. Some people may be at home, resting, relaxing from a mighty day of, keeping it holy, taking a rest. So, teaching and edifying the sheep. So, we're just gonna get on here, man, and drop this video for those who tune in while it's live. Shalom, peace be unto you and your household. Hope you had a peaceful Sabbath day for those who keep the Sabbath. Friday sundown, Saturday sundown. For those who don't keep the Sabbath, but you keep a lunar Sabbath, most high willing, your Sabbath coming up will be edifying. But we're just gonna get on here to kind of just talk a little bit about perfect timing, right? So, everyone knows who Deion Sanders is, right? Known as Coach Prime. Well, he has three sons, right? Osakin, Shiloh, and Shador. But Shador Sanders, the quarterback for Colorado, number 2, going to the NFL, man, last year he released a song called Perfect Timing. And the reason I wanted to title this discussion this is because there comes a point, and I guess you could say in your walk in the truth, that you're going to have to realize that everything is going to happen in its perfect timing, regardless of what man says, regardless of how you may feel. Sometimes you got to just take I guess you could say a step back and learn that the Most High is going to do everything in perfect timing, right? If we can, let's pull out the Bible real quick and let's go to the book of Ecclesiastes and let's start at chapter 3. Ecclesiastes chapter 3. Reason being is it's fitting to the lesson, it's fitting to the conversation. I promise you, I say this a lot every time, I'm spearheading the lesson or the discussion and I'm the main speaker. I guess you could say, I always say, Lord willing, we won't be on here that long, but I'm seriously saying that, this is not a long-winded video because it's not going into no deep scripture, right? But we just want to give a little reminder to the nation during this time about perfect timing, right? So let's read this.
The book of Ecclesiastes chapter 3. We starting at verse 1.
Yeah, start at verse 1. I was just trying to make sure.
The book of Ecclesiastes chapter 3, starting at verse 1. Fuck it. Starting at verse 1. To everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to break down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing.
Stop right there, right? Stop right there. So I know it's very repetitive, but the message is a time, right? A time, perfect timing. Everything that the Father is going to do is in perfect timing because why? There's an appointed time for every season for everything, right? Let's keep reading on
that. A time to get and a time to lose. A time to keep and a time to cast away. A time to rend and a time to sow. A time to keep silence and a time to speak.
Now, saying that, verse 7, right? A time to keep silence and a time to speak is the biggest one, right? Sometimes as a nation of people, I didn't even think about that precept, but now that Now that it says that, right? I gotta pull it up. Or I had a brother pull it up. Slow to speak. Um, what's that? James 1:19, right? Can you pull up James 1:19 real quick? I'm not gonna go on no diatribe about James 1:19, but I want to read it to correlate with what we just read. A time to keep silence and a time to speak. It's important to know that. Why is it important to know that what a time for when it comes to keeping silence and speaking? Is because again, man, you don't want to offer the sacrifice of fools, man. And I know that a lot of people, when certain things come out, when certain things transpire, right? Everybody wants to get their pride and saying something about it, right? But again, you got to remember there's a time for everything. And sometimes you don't want to rush and move in haste when it comes to talking about the scriptures, talking about the word, responding to certain things, giving certain things attention, because at the end of the day, you look like a fool if you open your mouth too quickly, right? But let's read this real quick. James 1:19. It says, "Wherefore, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath." Right? Why? Verse 20. It answers it. It says, "For the wrath of man worketh not the righteousness of God." So there's a reason why, um, for me to say perfect timing, I really want to emphasize on how sometimes we got to remember that all things will be complete in its timing, right? But you got to also be wise enough to understand that you got to know when and when not to say something, when and when not to react to something. You got to know when and when not to address something, because everything happens in its timing. And if we try to rush God's process, we're no longer operating in the spirit of wisdom that the Lord had given us, right? Now we're operating in the wisdom of the world, which according to 1 Corinthians 3:19 is foolishness with the most high God. So again, can we go back to in Salakia, can we go back to Ecclesiastes chapter 3 real quick? Let's go back to Ecclesiastes chapter 3. And we just gonna finish all of those times out. We're not reading the whole chapter, but we just gonna finish all these times out, right?
A
What did this?
time to get and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to cast away,
Uh-huh.
a time to rend and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a
Mm-hmm.
time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace.
Right. A time of war, so like in a time of peace. Everything in its time. Because all things are in the timing of the Lord, right? So again, that's why I wanted to title this Perfect Timing, to send a reminder to the nation, and not as if everyone needs it. So again, we know that the word is made for the sick, not the righteous, not the people who are perfectly in health are doctors in the hospital working for it. The doctors are working for the people who are sick, who are lame, who are blind and can't see, right? This lesson is not made for those who may understand everything in his timing. This lesson is for those who may not understand that, who may ask questions about, what's going on, what is transpiring, right? I don't know what to do, what's being said, what's being done, right? This is for those people who may not have a sure understanding of everything that's taking place. So again, there's a lot of conversation, especially over the course of the last few days. You could say the last week per se, just about certain things, certain topics, certain doctrines, certain discussions that are being had. Um, this will be the 2 cents from brother Yeshaya, right, brother Isaiah from the Hopeful Elect. This will be the 2 cents. Everything is perfect timing. Again, we living in a time where information is definitely available. Like the brother Azrael always says, we live in a time where information is easily accessible, right? We live in an information, I guess you could say, a, abundant generation, right? So it's not, to me, it's not really I guess you could say in crazy, it's not really I guess you could say a crazy, and it's not necessarily a surprise when you may hear certain things, hear certain understandings being given, hear someone, giving a breakdown of some sort. It's not a crazy thing to me to hear someone talking about a certain doctrine that they follow. Why? Because it's not as if there isn't access to information that maybe wasn't available, many years ago. Saying all that to say is that one thing that we have to do as Israelites is always remember that there's going to be a time when all this understanding gets corrected, right? Can we go to the book real quick of Zephaniah? Um, Zephaniah chapter 3. And just keep it wide because I want to make sure the verse. I want to just be sure of the verse, right? Keep scrolling. Let me see. Yeah, Khan. Let's start at Zephaniah 3 and let's start at verse 8. And we just gonna read 8 and 9.
All right. Zephaniah chapter 3 and verse 8. Therefore, wait ye upon me, saith the Lord, until the day that I rise up to pray. For my determination is to gather the nations, that I may assemble the kingdoms, to pour upon them mine indignation, even all my fierce anger. For all the earth shall be devoured with the fire of my jealousy.
Khan, Salaki, real quick. Before you read verse 9, remember, a time for peace and a time for war. The Lord's ultimate plan is to restore the kingdom to Israel, right? And in order to do that, certain prophecies have to come to pass. Like he has to plead with all flesh, right? He has to devour the nations, right? He has to put these people who are supposed to receive this inheritance through the fire. There's going to be a lot that takes place, and it's all going to happen in the time that the Lord appointed for it too. Again, it's perfect timing, right? Let's read verse 9.
Verse 9. But then I will turn to the people pure language. They may all call upon the name of the Lord to serve him with one consent.
Right. So there's going to be a time where things are going to be corrected and we're all going to serve the Lord with one consent, with one understanding, right? And it's not going to be so much confusion, right? It's not going to be any confusion at all. I'm not even going to use the word so much. It won't be any confusion, right? Because the Lord would have purified us, brought us through the fire, made us whole, and we will all serve him with one understanding. That's the approach I would like to take to a lot of the events that's taking place in our nation right now. Just keeping things in a perspective. Like, yeah, some stuff you may hear may sound crazy to you, but, and I'm not saying you shouldn't feel a certain type of way, regardless if you agree, disagree, whatever, right? What I'm saying is that always remember that, always move with the spirit of grace and mercy, because again, sometimes you got to remember that there's going to come a time where things will be corrected. And the best way to always approach new information is with a grain of salt. You know, don't get too high about it, but also don't just overlook it because it doesn't fit with, I guess you could say, it doesn't fit into your, um, I guess a better way to explain that is don't get too high about it as if this is new information and it's like, I guess you could say never seen before, how they advertise that on TV, but also don't overlook it as if it isn't something that is beneficial to you and maybe your salvation or, the walk that you're on, right? And I'm not saying that to say like everybody has their own personal relationship like a lot of people do when they talk to Israelites and they try to deflect. I'm saying that to say like, again, there's a lot of people, a lot of organizations that may understand the scriptures just a bit differently. We agree on a lot of the main things: keeping the commandments, keeping the Sabbath, wearing the fringes, who salvation pertains unto. But there's maybe certain things that get lost in the woodworks. Like, yeah, we agree on keeping the Sabbath, but which day does the Sabbath fall on? Stuff like that, you know. So my thing is, remember to always approach new information with the willingness to want to hear the matter out, right? And examine the matter before you speak, but do exactly that. You know, examine the matter, then rebuke. And this isn't a message to anybody in specific. This is just saying that, again, everything in its perfect timing, right? Because as well as I'm saying examine the matter, then rebuke, I'm also saying take your time to thoroughly examine the matter before you give it out as well. And I'm also saying to those people who, um, I guess you could say, are sitting back and observing, do the same thing, you know, examine the matter, then rebuke. But never think, again, never get out of, uh, I guess you could say, out of the understanding that this is not nothing new. And when I say this is not nothing new, I mean this is not nothing that we haven't seen before. Again, there's different understandings across the board, but we also got to remember to move with the spirit of grace and mercy when we're dealing with brethren, because again, everybody doesn't see eye to eye on everything. But one thing we do understand is that there's perfect timing. And by that, I'm saying that there's a time when the Lord will correct all things. Could we go to Galatians 4? I mean, what is that? Colossians 2 and 16. Colossians 2 and 16, not Galatians 4.
Colossians chapter 2 and 16. Let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink or in respect of any holy day or of the new moon or of the Sabbath days. 17 says, which are a shadow of things to come, but the body is of Christ.
Right. We got to remember that the body is of Christ, right? The Messiah. That's the main thing. All these things are a shadow of things to come, right? You know, never will I get too upset about new information, especially if someone isn't teaching you to break the commandments of the Lord, right? You know, and I know that, again, a lot of people feel a lot of different ways, but I'm just saying this to reiterate to the people that, you know, we got to remember that there's going to be times where someone may feel differently about the scriptures than you pertaining to a certain topic, right? Examine the matter, rebuke it. You know what I'm saying? If you disagree, if you agree, make sure you thoroughly examine the matter before you're willing to support something, right? But ultimately, always remember that these things are a shadow of things to come, regardless of what side you sit on, right? Because nobody in the world is teaching that well, I'll say it like this. I speak as a man, but nobody should be teaching that they have the 100% truth. That's just straight up. Nobody should be teaching that. But if you are someone who believes that you're very close to it, that's cool. You know what I'm saying? Because your faith and your conviction has led you to the understandings that you have of the scriptures. But you also have to keep in mind that someone may understand the scriptures a little differently. Who's to say they're wrong, right? You got to go precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little and there a little to truly examine who's right or wrong. But the main thing is that all of these things are a shadow of things to come, which is why, again, as brothers, as sisters, you know, certain things we shouldn't create a big mess over, because again, with information accessible like we have it in today's time, it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter how you feel about something. There's always going to be something that you may disagree with, right? Because someone sees something differently than you. So saying all that to say, again, perfect timing, right? Everything operates in the time that the Lord appointed. But there's going to come a time where, like we read in Zephaniah 3, like we just read in Colossians 2, things are a shadow of the things to come, right? There's going to come a time when the Lord is going to purify us and we're going to serve the Most High God with one consent, right? Shalom to the brother Denal. If you can, real quick, go to Luke chapter 1, right? Luke chapter 1. Go to verse number, start at 68, keep it wide, right? I'm taking a shift to read the definition of what salvation is. And I'm saying that I'm not switching topics, right? Again, perfect timing. Perfect timing. But I want to read the definition of what salvation truly is according to Luke, because there's a verse that says something that, again, speaks to what's being said right now. Let's read this. I'll read it. And it says, Luke 1:68, it says, "Blessed be the Lord God of Israel, for he hath visited and redeemed his people, and hath raised up an horn of salvation for us in the house of his servant David, as he spake by the mouth of his holy prophets, which have been since the world began." Verse 71, "that we should be saved from our enemies and from the hand of all that hate us, to perform the mercy promised to our fathers, and to remember his holy covenant, the oath which he swore unto our father Abraham," right? Verse 74, "that he would grant unto us, that we, being delivered out of the hand of our enemies, might serve him without fear," right? "In holiness and righteousness before him all the days of our lives," right? So there's going to come a time when the Lord is going to perform this oath. Again, when he does that, there's going to be a series of events that lead up to that, right? Like it talks about in Matthew 24, wars and rumors of wars, all these things, all these tribulations, trials, all these things have to come to pass, right? When this, but it's all in the time of the Lord. The part I want to emphasize the most is as when we serve him without fear, right? It's the same thing like it says in Zephaniah, when we should serve the Most High God with one consent, right? Because at the end of the day, we're going to all be on one accord when we're serving the Lord in the kingdom. It's just that simple. It won't be no disputations over doctrines. It won't be no arguments about, communication and how to handle a certain situation. It'll just be all God's people serving the Lord with one consent, without fear of our lives, without fear of our jobs, without fear of people ridiculing us, without fear of people bashing us, without fear of being looked down amongst the members of your community for a certain understanding that you have about on the scriptures, right? There's going to come a time like that. We'll go one more place. Let's go to Hebrews 8. All right. Hebrews 8. Again, saying all this to say perfect timing, man. Perfect timing. And I think about it because at the end of the day, like sometimes we try to rush the Lord, but like the last precept brothers read last night on the live was Acts 5:39, man. "But if it be of God, ye cannot overthrow, lest haply ye be found to fight against God." If the Lord ordains something, it's going to happen, right? And it's going to happen when the Lord says it should happen. Because again, the Lord is the creator, and he created a time for everything to come to pass, right? Let's read this in Hebrews 8, starting at verse number we can start at 8, and we're going to read through 11, right? Let's read through 11.
Hebrews chapter 8, verses 8 through 11. "For finding fault with them, he saith, Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in that day when I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Egypt, because they continued not in my covenant, and I regarded them not, saith the Lord. For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, saith the Lord. I will put my laws into their mind and write them in their hearts, and I will be to them a God, and they shall be to me a people. And they shall teach, and they shall not teach every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, Know the Lord, for all shall know me, from the least to the greatest."
So, Salaki, can y'all hear me?
Con.
So there's going to come it's an echo. Is it an echo now?
I can't hear you.
It's a little echo, but
It's echo coming from Austin.
Is it?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't hear no echo.
No echo no more.
Okay, Con. So, brother read Hebrews 8, right? Saying, reading that to read and say, man, there's going to come a day where, again,
Cut out,
You
brother.
know, I did.
Yeah.
What is the last thing y'all heard?
It's gonna be a day.
Gonna come a time.
can you hear me now?
Con.
Okay, Con. So, Salakia. What I was saying is, it's going to be a day, it's going to come a time, right, where we're going to serve the Lord, uh, without fear, with one consent, like it reads in Hebrews 8, like it reads in Jeremiah 31, like it reads in Zephaniah 3, right? We're going to serve the Lord with one consent. We won't teach every man his neighbor. And again, this is just me, I guess you could say, talking about this just because of certain, I guess you could say, events taking place right now in Israel, man. And this wasn't even the lesson I had planned for today. But when we didn't get on earlier, right? Because again, everything happens in its timing, right? We didn't get on earlier. So I had something totally different prepared. But when I talk to the brothers, man, when we watch these videos, we watch these lessons, these lives, these discussions, man, and we're talking about them and just seeing what's transpiring about stuff, it just put me in the mind to say, sometimes we kind of get caught up in our understanding of today's time, when you're not even going to realize that when the Lord is set to, put his people back on top, your understanding may not even matter, you know? At the end of the day, the only thing that matters is that we fear the Most High and keep his commandments, because it's the whole duty of man. But certain doctrines, that have, I guess you could say, no aim to teach people to break the commandments of the Lord. No doctrine that's out there that is being pushed. I don't think it's something that, again, that well, it's not for me to say. But like I said, I speak as a man. I don't speak for Brother Denal. I don't speak for Brother Azrael. I don't speak for the whole hopeful elect. I just speak for Brother Isaiah and my feelings and emotions towards certain situations. I just think that sometimes, we all get worked up over some things that at the end of the day, they're not big in the eyes of the Lord. Again, perfect timing, man. Fear God, keep his commandments. It's the whole duty of man. And when certain things are pushed out, when certain things are said, when certain understandings are came to, I take it with a grain of salt, because I understand, again, we live in an information abundant area. I know I said it a few times before. I just always say it again to reset the stage of, while I'm even on this line of discussion, right? But at the end of the day, a time for everything. But I ain't got nothing else to say on that. I ain't got nothing else to add to it. The brothers want to have anything to add to or speak
Yeah,
on?
I was actually gonna go to Hebrews 8. Before you said you was gonna go to that one last. I did want to reiterate, you know, living in this flesh, man, we can let a lot of things deceive us. One of those things being knowledge, right? Let knowledge deceive us into thinking that we can no longer grow in knowledge. The prophecy of knowledge increasing in the latter days, man, that applies to everyone, not just people who you think are ignorant or dumb. It applies to you too, right? Meaning you have to take everything face value. You have to try everything, right? Whether you think you have to or not, right? Whether don't want to, whether it irks your spirit or not, you should have an ear to everything pertaining to your belief, right? And also supporting, defending your God. Highlighted here in 10, he said, I will put my laws into their mind. It's a prophecy, man. Everybody wants to be in the new covenant. This is part of it, right? And putting his laws into your mind and writing them on your heart. That's a part that you want to look forward to. That uneasy feeling you get when you're unsure about a topic in the Bible, that uneasy feeling you get, or that bad feeling you get when somebody proves you wrong about the Bible, that will happen no more. Right? That's what this means, right? I thought it was gonna go here. Because I remember at camp he kind of quoted it. Probably skipped his mind though. But Isaiah 52:8 precepts, one of the first precepts the brother went to earlier, and going that this is prophecy. This is pretty much what Hebrews 8:8 and Jeremiah 30:31 says, right? Isaiah 52:8, thy watchmen shall lift up thy voice, with the voice together they shall sing, for they shall see eye to eye when the Lord shall bring again Zion, right? We're going to see eye to eye when the Lord brings us together as one nation again, right? When the trumpets of victory are sounded, right? We're going to see eye to eye then, you know what I'm saying? It's not going to be no division. It ain't going to be no slander, no hate speech, no filibustering. It's not going to be no ad hominems. It's not going to be none of that, bro. We're going to be there for one reason. If you make it there, Lord willing, we're going to be there for one reason only. You know what I'm saying? So, and that will indeed be the perfect time, right? But that's all I got to say. I yield.
Man. Hey, we gonna see eye to eye, man. We're gonna be going back to glory, holding hands, singing together, if it be the Lord's will, right? But yeah, man, perfect timing. Always keep things in the perspective that everything happens in the Lord's timing. There's no breakdown right now that I think that can separate us from one another. If you allow it to, then I feel like you're breaking one of the most important covenants. One of the most important commandments is love thy neighbor as thyself, right? Because even when there was a big discussion about old covenant, new covenant, which covenant we're in, the covenant that matters the most is the covenant of brotherhood at the end of the day. Brotherhood and sistership, right? Them the two most important covenants, right? How we treat one another, how we respond and react to one another. Regardless of understanding, do I show the fruits of the spirit like I'm supposed to with you, regardless of how you feel about me? You know, Always remember that. If everybody keeps this in mind, the nation will be far off. If you keep in mind that you're not responsible for no one else's actions but your own, the nation will be in a better place because people will learn how to communicate with each other a lot better, right? But again, perfect timing, everything in the Lord's timing. Brother Nall, you got anything?
Man, I agree with both the brothers, man. I think 2025 kind of started off with a certain level of tension within the community, and I think everybody realizes it. It can go two ways, right? It can settle in, and we can get back to a more peaceful era, or it can be a ticking time bomb. Both ways, man. Low key, I can see good coming out of it. With everything is in the perfect timing of the Most High, right? So whatever needs to transpire, I just trust that it's right on par. But nonetheless, man, what we strive for is peace, man. And to get there, to get to peace, it takes a level of self-discipline, and knowing which battles to fight and which battles to let go. And I think that's what we're fighting with now is knowing which battles to let go, what is to be taken serious, and what is to some things you can let slide. But nonetheless, man, I do agree with both the brothers, man. We're looking forward to that time where we all agree, and there will be no more debating. There will be no more contention. There will be no more clout chasing. There will be no more fights for power and authority and leadership, because we'll have our leader. You know what I'm saying? But that's all I got to say for real, man.
Man. Well, mighty points, man. But with that, man, the brothers of the Hopeful Elect will sign off, man. Post Sabbath discussion, vent session, breakdown, whatever you want to call it. Want to give all praises, glory, and honor again be to the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We'll be on live again tomorrow, man. shout out to those who are keeping the destruction of Nicanor as well tonight too. But we'll be on live tomorrow doing our Purim. So hey, if you got time, tune in. But again, coming up on the new year, all stuff always gets shaky around. It get closer to.
So, we just got to keep doing our part and, purging that leaven out of our hearts best way we can. Shalom.
You can always smell Passover season in the air, man. When stuff gets tricky out here, but kind of
right, no lie. But man, shalom, and shalom, and we'll see y'all next time, Lord willing.